Right, so that takes us neatly on
Yeah.
to the ecological value of local public open space. So I think we've been discussing that already, really.
I think we have. I mean, this question, there's quite often competing demands on open spaces, and I think we've already raised the issue of events, which is quite a significant issue for Westminster's open spaces. But in terms of ecological value, does anyone want to put forward things that they think are of far lesser value that we're doing with our open spaces and should perhaps take a back seat to considering these biodiversity and ecological issues? Or are there things that people think are far more important than the ecological value of our open spaces, and we should just sort of, in some ways, perhaps take a more lenient line in terms of loss of ecological value in our open spaces for other things? Is there anyone who wants to put forward any relative priorities for our open spaces?
I'm not seeing that anybody thinks getting rid of anything of an ecological nature is what we're after.
I wouldn't mind getting rid of pigeons and possibly grey squirrels.
Yes, a lot of nods. I'm not sure how we do that in planning terms, but
you put building.
So he displaced them. He displaced them. Go to Whitehall Place.
I mean, I think there was. Sorry,
I was going to say nesting boxes for birds. They can now have bricks that they can have for house mountains and others, but then it encouraged the, what is the bird? Is it a falcon that's busy in Leicester Square?
Peregrines.
Invest in some whatever. Yes, I think that could come under environment. A pair of those. We've got a pair nesting at the House of Lords at the moment.
If you want to get rid of pigeons, you use a contraceptive in corn or something. That should do the trick ultimately.
Well, I'm not sure how this is a planning matter. I suppose it is a planning matter, but not in terms of town planning matter. Gabby.
Another project where the St Marylebone Society is trying to get going is to get the drinking fountains back in action in our area, and partly to cut down on people buying plastic bottles. And I know it was one of Boris Johnson's big plans for the Olympics. It's very hard to sort it out through all the different departments because we've been trying for a while. But that, I noticed that a lot of the designs have like a trough at the bottom for dogs, and then they have a bird bath on top. And so I think the fountain could be kind of a nice streetscape feature that adds some ecological value to the urban spaces. I don't know.
Metropolitan Drinking Fountain are looking for projects north of the Thames River at the moment.
Are they?
And they just applied any schools, they'll do ready-made ones. The restoration of their metropolitan cattle, dog and horse troughs are rather more of a problem. But drinking fountains, any public open space, they've just put it in St James St Michael's School in Craven Terrace.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
And one in St James's Church in
Okay, Anne, I think we've got it.
Gardens.
I think we've got that.
I was
Thank
going
you.
to say, in terms of some of the open spaces as well, sometimes there's a conflict between appearance and biodiversity issues. And I know that we all like to see the areas that are left unmown, but perhaps anyone wants to...
Yes, there is another issue actually. I'm a Safer Neighbourhood Chair as well, and in a relatively small park we have had a problem with too much biodiversity, which has led to a lot of cover for nefarious goings on. And we've actually had a child raped behind that. It has to be sort of delicately balanced, and there is the security issue that I think needs to be played quite strongly.
When we addressed this before, it was that you had to see through hedges with gaps between, and the grass in the dell isn't to grow above a certain height in the royal parks. That was the last time we had this discussion.
But it's obviously got out of hand in this small park.
I think a lot of rain just makes stuff shoot, and there are other reasons why it actually happened, because there's building work going on there too. But it's a sort of issue that we are quite concerned about.
So how would we deal with that in planning terms?
Management.
And the choice of plants as well. Some will sprout faster than others, I presume.
Well, it does. Sorry, it does come back again. I think this idea of sponsorship, you're going back to what developers might do. It isn't just creating the open space, it's funding a management scheme for it, which is even more important.
British Waterways, sorry.
Just that I think the Royal Parks now, when they want to put up a new statue, you have to put an endowment for 30 years. I'm not sure how far that's got, but I know that that's been debated.
We've had a couple of schemes where we try to work with the developer to either contribute with a canal fund or so that we can sort of maintain the area around their development. That's at King's Cross. They've given us some money so that we can maintain the canal environment around their development to the standard that they're going to raise their part to. So it doesn't, so it matches their development, as it were. And other places where rents from the developments have gone towards a continuous maintenance fund to help us, especially where you have a vacant site that we don't have to spend an awful lot of money on because there's no one going there, and as soon as there's development there's a lot more pressure from residents and new residents and visitors, so we try to encourage that for large scale developments. I guess it's most appropriate for them.
I can see a lot of nodding that this is perhaps a read across out away from canals that this could be. But that's a really nice example that perhaps councillors weren't aware of, certainly, and perhaps the officers are. Tom?
Councillor Howie, I just wanted to go back to the way the question is put. Does Westminster City Council have a presumption that there should be a priority of ecological over other uses? Because that's strange, that is.
I think, can I come back on that? I think it's just the way that the question was poorly put. It is, what we're really trying to get down to is should there be priorities for open space?
Right.
And I think one of the things we're looking at is, for example, events that are held in squares, even temporary events is something we do have to permit, I believe. So it's just looking at the general issue of what priorities should be. And is it access over biodiversity, or is it a combination of?
I mean, perhaps that's a real key one, actually, that you can get conflicts between allowing access and biodiversity. And actually in the core strategy for the Blue Ribbon Network, we have drawn up priorities for the Blue Ribbon Network, and we have said something like water-based transport doesn't take priority over ecological things. So albeit that we want to encourage water-based transport, we certainly don't want to do that at the cost of diminishing biodiversity in the canal and in the river. So there are conflicts.
It really is a case by case, because I can immediately think in terms of the waterways that there are conflicts straight away. I want it for all my fish or something, and I don't want any barges going through there, thank you very much, but whatever.
So are people saying that it's a balance on a case-by-case basis rather than one matter over another? All of the items that you've identified matter.